Hello everybody, and welcome to an introduction to RagNext. Building rich, interactive simulations and complex game worlds shouldn't require fighting clunky, rigid user interfaces. Welcome to RagNext Studio. This is a multi-platform designer and simulation engine built entirely using C#, Avalonia, and Unity Player. It is cross-platform, so we support the designer in both Mac and Windows PC platforms right now. The game player itself, which is Unity-based, is supported in Windows PC, Mac, Linux, and a WebGL distribution. So if you want to host your game on a website, you're welcome to do that as well. What I'm going to do right now is show you the RagNext launcher. Whenever you want to design games with the RagNext Studio, this initially comes up and you can choose your most recent workspaces. It comes with the Stellar Blackout Quick Start sample game, which I'll be showing you today. And you can also import design packages. If someone is working on multiple computers or you have a team that wants to import and export the design package, you're welcome to do that. So let's jump into Stellar Blackout here and take a look at what we've got. This tool, you'll notice, is engineered from the ground up for speed and flexibility. This RagNext Workspace gives you total structural control. From a centralized dashboard, as you can see here, you can package your entire design into an optimized RagNext file format. You can configure custom state configurations like these global where slots that are on here and track your overall world metrics at a single glance. Down here you can see this sample game has only 4 rooms, 1 character, 10 game objects, and 9 variables. So let's take a look at this where slot setting. In a lot of adventure games, if you're designing those, for example, and you have clothing, you want to make sure, for example, that a knight isn't wearing 5 sets of armor on their torso, for example. So we can actually track these wear slot settings in your items so that when you are trying to wear a piece of clothing or armor, we have a command in the Visual Script editor that will detect whether this piece of clothing can be worn or not, and then based on the value you can branch your logic from that point. So let's jump on to these tabs, since this is just a high-level overview. Your player and start config, you can look at all of the definitions for your player. You can set their starting room, their description, you can set their image, and you'll see in Stellar Blackout that I dynamically set the image based on choices the player makes. Also on this right-hand side is all your assets and catalog. So you can see I've got both music, I've got video, which you'll see when we do a quick demo of the game itself, and a number of images that are used throughout the game. As we scroll down, you can see you can assign starting inventory to your player. You can set custom player attributes. And down here is the global player action scripts. So these action scripts are usable on rooms, characters, objects, items, etc. You can also make functions and timers that also have a similar visual editor. So let's look at the on start setup. You'll notice over here the trigger events. By default, user clicked is a simple action that when you're running the game, the user will actually have to click on it to execute. But there's also a number of triggers. So if a character moves in or leaves a room, when your player moves or leaves, or every turn, you can do all of these different sorts of trigger events. So I set up some triggers on game start. Let's do a quick look at that. And you'll be able to see this as well if you load the sample game. So what you're looking at here is the visual editor. This is how you program in the design tool. So yeah, you can zoom out, you can zoom in. You can do multiple selections of several items at once, holding down the control key, move them around. You can, in fact, copy all of the selected nodes and paste those selected nodes as well. So it's very user-friendly. Try to make things go as quickly as possible. So I'll do a quick run through just so you can get a feel for what we're doing here. And you'll see this in action in a second. But upon starting, this command is called prompt player input. So we say, welcome to Stellar Blackout. Please select your starting player. And right now I set it to, you can choose a male character or a female character. And then we jump over here and ask, same command, but this time we're asking for the player's name. And that's being stored in a different variable. So we have prompt input variable here and a different variable here. And if you ever are in the middle of coding and you realize, oh, I need a variable, but I don't have one. When you select your variable, we have a add new button. So you can just add a new variable, put in all the details later and continue your programming. But over here, you'll see we're setting the player's name based on their input. And then we branch the condition, whether they choose male or female. So we're checking to see if they chose male. If they did, we go up here and we set their gender, we set their portrait, and then we start playing my alarm sound effect, which is part of the game that you'll see. Similarly with the female. Let's jump into rooms. What you'll see here are a list of rooms. You can sort them. Let's click on the starting chamber. You can see you can assign images. You can also select your exits and navigation. So from this room, the starting chamber, if you go north, you will go to the bridge. And if you're in the bridge, you'll see south automatically gets linked back to that starting chamber. Down here, you have custom attributes you can assign to individual rooms if you want. And you can assign which objects are in your room by simply checking the item you want to be in this room. And then, of course, we have actions. So similarly, this is the examine for room. You display this description in a portrait. I made these commands generic so they could apply to any room element or character element, really any game element. Let's jump into the characters. Right now, I only have my maintenance drone. In Alpha 4, which will be released on July 1st, 2026, depending on when you're watching this, I have commands to move your characters. If you want them in motion by themselves, they can move on a predefined route if you'd like, or they can move randomly to any valid rooms that are available to them at the moment. So those are all options that you can do. You can choose a gender if you want. You can check hostile or not. You can assign their starting room. Characters can have inventories. They can also have attributes and similar commands. So whenever this drone, since it will be able to move on its own route, whenever it enters a room, I have it say a little message, and whenever it leaves, we let the player know that the drone is no longer in the room, and that can be done on timers. Let's look at the game objects next. So this sample game has a number of puzzles for the user to solve to stop the countdown timer before the ship explodes and they die. And to do that, I had to create a number of items. Some of the items can be carryable, some could be wearable. You set if it's wearable, if it's initially worn or not. For example, this key card is one of the key elements you need to solve the game. It's carryable. And just like all the other items, you can assign descriptions, you can assign attributes. You can also mark it whether it's a container or not, and I do have some containers here. Let's see. In the Technician's Toolkit, for example, it's carryable, but it's also a container. And inside that container, it has a key card, for example. So that's how you would assign that. And similarly, you can take, drop, open, close. All of these commands are available to you. Global variables. So variables are interesting. So they can be arrays. For example, here's a rather complicated variable that I'm using for testing at this point since I'm still in alpha. But you can define your columns, you can add your rows and fill them in, and you can actually loop through these elements. You can loop through several things, and I'll show that in another video. But we also have booleans, for example. We also have, this is essentially a string, but it should be a boolean here, but you can do all sorts of things. And you notice prompt input from earlier is a string, and it's just used to temporarily store the user's selection from choices. Now let's look at timers. There's a couple timers I had hinted about moving the drone. But let's look at this one. This is the countdown to doom timer. And it's not initially active, but it does activate once your player moves from their starting location. I didn't want to start the timer right away and give everyone a heart attack while they're getting used to the RAG system. So once they move, they'll get notified that they only have a certain amount of time before the ship self-destructs. But the interesting thing I wanted to show you is the switch node in our timer. So let's look at this. So it looks a bit crazy right now, but what we're doing is every time this timer goes off, we're decreasing the doom countdown. So they start with 10 minutes and they work down to 0, where the game ends and they have lost because they've exploded. And each time I decrease this, I check with this switch control flow what the current number is. So it's going to be 10, 9, 8. It works its way down. And each time it goes down, it's going to play a slightly different customized audio recording I created. That lets them know there's 9 minutes left or 8 minutes left, whichever it is. I customized a number of those, and it's more just to demonstrate how the system works. One of the nice things with the tool is that you can actually play your audio and adjust which portion of your audio or video, this works, to play. So if you have a long sound effect or a long video that you want to use for multiple commands, you can use one video and just play short snippets of that in different sections. So all of that works very well. And let's go back here. And here's global functions. So a function could be called from any of these. It's useful for code that needs to be repeated in many different locations, but you don't want to necessarily code it every time. The splash screen, you'll see you can choose whether you want video or image and text. You can choose your transition style, how you want your text to show up. What you want it to say, you can adjust the positioning of, where exactly you want your images to show up. You can set your fade in durations, the hold or display times, and the fade out. And you can give a border to your game if you'd like, and change the color and width. Status elements, so you can add status elements into your game. So you'll see when I run the game here that we have a player, and if you want to add an element, for example, here's one that says health, and you could put the value instead of an actual number here. If you want it to be dynamic, use these curly braces and you get your autocomplete, so you can fill in whatever. Let's type in variables. So whatever variable you want, even an element from that array, as I had mentioned, you just fill those in here. But for this game, I do not have one, so I'm not going to use that. Here's another view into our media asset library, similar to this view. Larger screen, you can organize items within folders and subfolders within folders as well. And then the action library. So if you do have default commands like examine, for example, that I use everywhere, you can customize all your commonly used actions, like everything should have examine, for example, or if you want open and close, but you don't want to have to repeat everything, you can choose your items such as open, for example, and open only works on container objects. So you don't want open to show up as an option if it's a character or whatever, for example. And then you go in here and you can see what the command does. I use these generic this.name and this.id to make it flexible and reusable no matter what you're adding it to. Now let's look at publishing. So you can publish the game up here, or you can jump to your publisher here. And you can publish your game for any of these formats: Windows, Mac, Linux, and WebGL is that web-based product. If you have a website and you want to host your game, this is how you would do it. Well, let's do it on our Windows format. And what it does is, you'll see up here my publish destination was Stellar Blackout. It said, hey, you've already done a publish there, or there's game files there. Do you want to delete them before publishing? So I'll go ahead and say yes. I will get some sound on so you can actually hear. And then we will get the game going in just a second. Okay, so you'll notice that it popped up with our game here, Stellar Blackout. So we're all ready to go. All you have to do to get the game going is double click and we will run. So here you'll see it's made with Unity. Loading up, and here we go. We're jumping into the game. And this is what I was talking about. You can start of the game, you can select whether you want to be male or female. We'll pick male, we'll give it a name, and we'll submit. And here you go. So here's our character. Here's our starting chamber. So we can click on Joe and we can examine him. For example, a lot of these commands are for testing. But here's Joe. We can examine back here in our chamber. And there are key commands that will let you move around to navigate, or you can click navigation, which pulls up a compass rose. You've got in, out, up, down, all of these different directions. Now, if you click on help, you can actually see what commands you use if you want to be more engaged in the game. This way you can just use your keys, you can hide your navigation and not have to worry about it. So that's another option. There's also a integrated save system and load system. So if you do want to save, you just click an empty slot, or you can overwrite a current slot. Like if we do here, it will let you know, hey, you want to overwrite it. So we'll go ahead and overwrite it. Then we'll go north, and you can see that we are now on the bridge. The countdown has started. We're going to explode unless we solve the puzzles. And this timer runs independently of the game itself. But anyway, that was all I wanted to show you for this video. It was a quick introduction, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.